Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope everybody's doing well today. Hope everyone's doing well today. Well rested. Have a great week, or had a great week, rather. As you can tell by the title today, we're going to be getting into information pertaining to the Northern and Southern Kingdom, being within the confines of West Africa. You know, as Prophet Zephaniah prophesied it to us. All right. My main point in bringing this information out today is based on the fact that we can find various tribes within Western Africa, letting us know, based off their oral traditions and customs, that they do have descendants of the Southern Kingdom and they do have descendants of the Northern Kingdom, and how it's flawed to, make a chart and base people off, I guess you can say, a supposed dream, base nations of the world and try to say that they're children of Israel based off someone's dream, when we have our own ancestors that we African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, so forth, so on, actually descend from, claiming descent from these various tribes, who you're saying these other people are. All right. So again, I'm not going to waste any time today. We're going to get straight into the information today. Again, we're dealing with the oral traditions of certain West African tribes, and just basically who they say they are, and how the 12 tribes chart is flawed. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen, and we're gonna get into it. And shalom, shalom to everyone within the chat. All right, you go back 1 second. Put this in full view, and then we can get started. So we're dealing with West African Jewry today. All right, West African Jewry. First source we're going to be reading from is In Every Tongue, the Racial and Ethnic Diversity of the Jewish People. All right, starting at the top. When the Assyrians conquered the house of Israel around 722 BCE, they deported the native populations to other places throughout the Assyrian kingdom. Many Israelites made their way across the Silk Road, ending up within Asia and Africa, where they intermarried with the peoples whom they settled. They eventually abandoned their distinct identity and their culture was lost to history. These groups are referred to as the Lost Tribes of Israel. All right, and today we're going to be focusing on those within Africa, specifically Western Africa, those tribes that made their way into Western Africa. So Ghana Bullington of Theology tells us that dealing with a missionary, that in one of his quarterly reports to the Basel Mission Committee in 1852, Zimmerman wrote a link about the integrity of the traditional African families he had observed. Despite the cultural decay that was all around them, he noted many families preserved a clear and stable patriarchal form, suggesting the presence of a strong Old Testament influence. And he's saying this after visiting several West African tribes and families, saying that there's a strong presence of Old Testament influence. And of course, we're going to build up into the information with these beginning sources. And shalom, shalom to everyone in the chat. It goes on to say, this observation led to him to join the speculation that West Africans had ties to ancient Christian communities within Ethiopia, and that's true. Certain West African tribes do. It says, therefore, he reasoned West Africans quite possibly represented a mixture of Semitic and Hamitic cultural and racial strains. All right, and we will be saying that these will be coming from the northern and southern kingdoms, the Semitic strand or the Semitic racial strand. And even if we look at it at a genetic standpoint, when haplogroup E came into Western Africa, they killed off a lot of those old native populations, which were A and B, and E became the dominant haplogroup. Basically, the Semitic people became the dominant people within West Africa. This is known. Jump into this real quick. The Yorubas, or the religion of the Yorubas, especially in relation to the religion of ancient Egypt. So starting at the highlighted, it says the West African word ye, which means to exist, is subject to many changes in the different languages. E sometimes become A or I or O, or these vowels nasalized. Throughout all these changes, the meaning remains the same. All right, and it also means the same within Hebrew. It says throughout all of these changes, the meaning remains the same. For the same convenience, the root word is designated ye in this word. The word occurs in several of the leading West African languages, such as the Tasha, which is the Akan, the Ewe, the Ga, the Yoruba, and the Edo, etc. The vowel of the word is the subject to modification in the different languages to indicate shades of meaning and may be replaced by any of the other vowels of these vowel nasalized. J sometimes replaces the Y, and a nasal sound sometimes precedes it. Example, Inyi in the Ewe language means to be. He goes on to say, after they looked at this, it says it is quite probable that the word is of Semitic origin, and we know it's of Semitic origin because again, it means to exist, and it's a derivative of Haya. But it says of Semitic origin, and that it comes from the root word, which means to live or to exist. The Hebrew word for to be, to exist, is Haya. All right, and the first part of the word ha varies when the verb is conjugated and must have been left out when the word was adopted by the peoples who afterward migrated to West Africa. So they're telling us it was some Semitic migration into West Africa, and it's reflected in some of the people's languages. All right, such as the Akan and the Ewe and the Ga and the Yoruba and the Edo, as they mentioned. So let's continue. This is coming from the Reformed Advocate. All right, the Reformed Advocate. And we're going to start at the highlighted, or we're going to start at the very top. It goes on to mention that clear indications of Hebraic influence or influences are also found among other West African tribes. In Nigeria, the number of stripes to be inflicted among the pagan blacks during a legal flogging is precisely the same as enjoined by the Mosaic Law 40 save one. Among the Gambian River blacks, it is customary for a widower to marry his descendants or deceased wife's sister, a tradition reminiscent of Judaism. Also in northern Guinea, the blacks practice circumcision and the tribal division in family units of 12. All right, so we see all these different influences and traditions that's found amongst, the ancient Israelites. But it goes on to say, while the mourning customs with the shaving of heads and wearing soiled and tattered clothes is probably of Jewish origin too. And we know that will be related to ashes and sackcloth. It goes on to say many of the West African tribes have a weekly rest day similar to the Hebrew Shabbat. All right. So we just, again, gaining up all this information, showing you the traditions of a lot of these West African tribes before we start to dig into them individually. So Rethinking Africans, or Rethinking Africa's Transcontinental Communities by Derek Lane. Traditions of origin are rarely considered in ancient African history. So let's start at the very top. Traditions of origin are nowadays rarely taken into account for the reconstruction of ancient African history. Owing to the influence of written material on their content, they are considered to be unreliable. So they don't even take the oral traditions of the people into account when they're mapping out or when they're relaying African history. So skipping down to the second highlight, it lets us know that it further contends that in spite of their wildly different forms and names of their heroes, major West African traditions of origin reflect the mass migration precipitated by the fall of the Assyrian Empire at the end of the 7th century BCE. All right, so again, these West African traditions, they're reflecting migrations into Africa from the Near East or from the Levant. And they also have traditions and culture to match. It goes on to say the evidence for the mass migration to sub-Saharan Africa is mainly provided by oral and dynastic traditions in the Central Sudan. It is supported by data derived from ancient Near Easterners, written sources. All right. It goes on to say in the second highlighted, also that written accounts mentioning that refugees from the ancient Near East reached sub-Saharan Africa are only provided by Arab historians. So even the Arabs mention the fact that there were descendants or refugees from the Near East that reached sub-Saharan Africa, which is very important for this topic. So let's deal with the Akan first. Oral traditions of the ruling Abrande clan relate that the Akans originated from the ancient Ghana. They migrated from the north. They went through Egypt, all right? So they migrated from the north. Then they ended up going through Egypt. We know what's north of Egypt, right? And settled in Nubia around 500 AD due to the pressure exerted on Nubia by the Aksumite kingdom of Ethiopia. Nubia was shattered, and the Akan people moved east and established small trading kingdoms. All right. So we're going to jump back to the Reformed Advocate. And it says, are the Black Ashanti tribes of West Africa Jews? It says, are the Negroes of West Africa Jews? Are they descendants of Jewish tribes? Are they perhaps the offspring of the 10 tribes of Israel? Are they the seed of an alleged marital alliance between Queen Sheba and King Solomon? These and other equally fascinating questions are asked, discussed, and answered with more than usual plausibility in the Hebrewisms of West Africa by Father Joseph Williams of Boston College. 15 years of patient and exhaustive research have convinced Father Williams that the Black Ashanti tribes of West Africa have numerous religious and tribal customs that are markedly Hebraic. Not only did he find religious customs that smacked of being Jewish, but his painstaking investigation showed a really remarkable diffusion of Hebraic culture among the so-called pagan blacks of the Dark Continent. Before following the ancient tribes from Palestine, Syria, Egypt, Carthage, and Phoenicia, in their long trek into the heart of Africa, where they transmitted their religious traditions and culture to alien peoples, lets us see just what are the similarities between the Ashantis and the pre-exilic Hebrews. It says, in the first place, many Ashanti words have been found to bear a striking resemblance to the Hebrew words for equivalent objects. In the Ashanti language, the word obi means magic, while the Old Testament Hebrew word ob means a bottle, and is in many instances applied to magicians because they, being opposed or possessed when an evil spirit, speak with a soft and hollow voice as out of a bottle. It goes on to say, in grammar and in verbal construction, marked similarities have also been noted. While Father Williamson doesn't say that the Ashantis and Hebrews are of the same linguistic family, he does suggest that not a few Hebrew words have been engrafted on the native tongue of the Ashanti. He is even of the opinion that the name Ashanti is of Hebrew origin, for he points out the suffix T in African dialects mean people of, and by showing that there was a town of Ashan in the dominion of Judea, he would make the Ashantis the people of Ashan. And we even have scripture references here, Leviticus 19:31. And this is dealing with the word ob, regard them not that have familiar spirits, neither seek. So in the Hebrew form, like they were just saying, ob would mean evil spirit or familiar spirit or wizard, something like that. And we can see that transmitted or found all the way in the Ashanti language within Western Africa. And even Joshua 15:42 lists off Ashan as a territory of Judah. So we can see that some of the people of Ashan or the Akan would be descendants of Judah. It goes on to say that the mosaic of intertribal marriages devised to preserve the racial inheritance of the Jews. In this form, cross-cousin marriages allowance among the West African blacks. All right, so this is also found amongst the Ashantis. And he also goes on to say a really remarkable Hebrewism is the curious similarity between Hebrew and Ashanti marriage rituals. All right, it says in both rites, wine also plays an important role. It says the Ashantis with being Hebrews is strange resemblance of the Ashanti supreme being with the Yahweh of the Old Testament. The common Ashanti word for the creator is Nyame or Anyame. By quoting the authority on the Ashanti language, to the effect that the letters M and W are interchangeable, Father Williams strengthens his assumption, first based on the observations and studies of the predecessors, that the word Nyame or Yame is a derivation of Yahweh or vice versa, or that both came from the same Semitic root. All right, so we even say or see a derivation of the name of the God of Israel within the Akan language, and they called him Most High by the name of Nyame. All right. It goes on to say other instances, too, Father Williamson finds unmistakable Hebrewisms, showing that the breastplates of the natives have 12 divisions and that there are 12 stocks among the Ashantis. He speculatively asks whether this is not an indication of some affinity with the 12 tribes of Israel. What may be a throwback to Hebrew progenitors is also seen in the Ashanti Feast of Tabernacles, or as the natives term it, of ingathering. All right, so we see a lot of traditions and customs amongst these Akan people or Ashanti people. So let's see who they descend from. To continue on, we're going to go to Black Jews in Africa and the Americas. And we're going to start at the very top, where it says there are many other examples of international or internationalization of the Israelite topos. One such is the fairly recent development of the House of Israel community of the Sefwi Woso or Wiaso and Sefwi Su in Ghana, which has been a favorite locus for Israelites in Africa discourse. Members of the community believe that their ancestors, the Sefwi, and again the Sefwi, are descendants of the Akan. All right. And the Sefwi believe that their ancestors are descendants from the lost tribes of Israel who migrated south through the Ivory Coast by way of Timbuktu, bringing with them certain Jewish rites and observances. The House of Israel community was created in 1976 after a local Muslim, I don't want to butcher his name, but it says had a vision that convinced him that his Sefwi ancestors were Israelites. He came to this conclusion in part because of the similarities he perceived between the traditions of his own people and those of the Jews. According to the community, they traditionally and rigorously circumcised their young, observed a Saturday day of rest, refused to eat pork. Their women were obligated to retreat into isolation during a menstrual period, and so on. All right. So as he did more research, he became increasingly convinced that the Sefwi ancestors were directly descended from the ancient Jews, and these ancestors would be the Akan. It goes on to say one of his neighbors, David, and others from the neighboring villages went to the Ivory Coast to the to delve further into the history and formed a tentative conclusion that perhaps they were descendants from Jews of Timbuktu. All right, so we got their beliefs and their traditions and customs. So let's look and see, what tribes we can find amongst these Akan peoples. And one of the first tribes we're going to look at is Judah, of course. And we're looking at Revelation, the movement of the Akan people from Canaan and Ghana. And up top, it says Akan. This was the name of the son of Cami, or Carmi, from the family of Sabdi, the son of Sirach from the tribe of Judah, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. All right. So the name Akan, which we see today within Western Africa, is actually a son of Judah by way of Carmi. It goes on to say during the time of Gadan, or the house of Yah or Jah, Jordan crossing to conquer Jericho, it says Akan committed a sacrilege by helping himself to the consecrate spoil of Jericho. The offense was against the bond, the offense was against the bond, the cherubim of Yahweh. The act reflected on the entire nation, and in the punishment, our Israelite foreparents suffered a severe reserve in their attack on Ai. Akan's guilt was traced by Joshua, and he confessed his sins openly before Adon Yahweh, all right, or Adonai Yahweh, or Yahuwah, or God of grace. It says he was stoned and his sons at Akko Kum, or Akar Valley. The Talmud finds a mitigation of judgment in the Akan's ultimate confessions and maintains that this saved him from eternal punishment. All right. So we see Akan actually ended up being stoned within Accra Valley. But we see later his descendants ended up making their way all the way down into Ghana, and they was able to retain this knowledge and even this oral tradition within their tribes today. And we can look at Joshua 7, verse 1, and see that Akan was a son of Carmi by way of Judah. Next tribe we have amongst the Akan is Gad, all right? And we're going to go to, so let's start at the top right here, where it says, Gayakan, he was the name of the ancestral father from the tribe Gadad, or Gadi, or Gad, which they call it. And it says, a leader of the great family, Gad was one of the 12 tribes of Israel, all right? And we see that Gayakan is really Jakan. And if we go to 1 Chronicles 5 and 3, we see that Jakan, right, is a son of Gad, listed off within the Chronicles. All right. So Jakan is also a son of Gad by way of the Akan that we see in Ghana today. This is one of their ancestral fathers, Jakan. We also have Levi amongst the Akan. And starting at the very top, it says, on the other hand, if we are identifying the name of the language, the word Twi, as known and written today, the origin of the language should be traced back to the different location, and that is to ancient Israel, all right? Which also makes sense comparatively that the root origin of Twi language is nothing else than Hebrew, Aramaic, the language spoken in ancient Israel and Chaldea. All right. And if we go down here to the second highlighted, it says that the Twi people are descendants of the priestly family of high priest Eli, whose descendants would die upon reaching manhood, unless redeemed by studying Torah and personally involvement in philanthropy or philanthropy. Okay. And even if we go to Ezra 10 and 15, we will actually see that Tikwa is a son of Levi, and the Twi is the son or the children of Levi. Excuse me, fam. I was looking at the comment section, but let me start over with this. If we go to Ezra chapter 10, verse 15 and read it, it says, only Jonathan, the son of Ashel, and Jehaziah, the son of Tikva, were employed about this matter, and Mashallah and Shabbatita, the Levite, helped them, all right? If we was to go into the Strong's Concordance and look up Tikva, we would see that he is the son of Jehaziah, who is a Levite as well. All right. And the name Twi is actually a derivative of Tikwa or Tikva. And if you were to look up Tikva in the Strong's, it's actually pronounced Tikwa or Tweekwa. All right. Again, and if we continue on, it says those above mentioned names were the ancestral fathers of the present Akan, Jakan, from modern Ghana. The indication of the name Jakan portrays the Akan as the son of God, originating from the ancient kingdoms of Judah, Israel, and the northern kingdom, and also Edom. And if you was to read this book, you would actually know why they say Edom, because I believe I actually had it on the last slide as well, where it mentions that the children of Akan or Jakan and the children of Esau formed an alliance. So that's why it says that there as well. But let's continue on. The next tribe we can look at is the Gadambes. But before we go into them, we just saw that the Akan had descendants of Gad, Levi, and Benjamin amongst them. And even with them, we can see why the 12 tribes chart is flawed. And it can't be probable, because in order for it to be true, you will have to have, the Akan under Gad, Levi, and Judah. And you don't. You just have American blacks under Judah. You just have, what do you have? Haitians under Levi, and so forth, so on. And whoever you have under Gad. But let's continue on to the Goddamn Bears. History of the Gold Coast and the Ashanti. It says the last instance is the peculiar dress worn by the chief priest of Accra, all right, and the people of Accra are the gods. And it says a close inspection of the priest in the official garb leads to the conviction that his worship must be of foreign origin, as there is no African nation or tribe ever known to have so advanced in their religious views as the Akras. One is inclined to suppose that the Jewish system of worship in the Old Testament style has been either introduced by or imitated from the people who came out first to this coast. All right. So they're saying the Jewish system of religion in the Old Testament is within these people's traditions and customs. And even when they were talking about the chief priest of the people of Accra, here is a chief priest right here getting ready to make libations. As you can see, the strong beverages within his hand. And even I'm looking at the chat right now. The brother just said, or he's making mention to the name Yi from the West African traditions. He's making mention to the fact that even in the Caribbean, they use the word Yi to mean am or be or to exist. We say Inwi, Yi, which ironically is what the Limbas call themselves, Inyi. I like that. Good looking, good looking. But yes, the word ye being found all the way down in the Caribbean and it's still having the same exact meaning, just shows the influence of our people and guess you can say the carrying of the culture from Western Africa to the Caribbean, or from Israel, the Levant, to Western Africa to the Caribbean. But traditions and customs of the Gadambes of Ghana. It says oral history had it that the nucleus of the Gadambes originated in Goshen and arrived in their Gold Coast via an early route which started immediately in Upper Egypt and Abyssinia. Having crossed the Volta River in a parting of the waters reminiscent of Moses' parting of the Red Sea, the ancestors of the Gadambes, comprising in the main direct and partial descendants of the two tribes, Gad and Dan, founded the Lanimo Kingdom. All right. And this is important because, again, majority of the tribes I'm bringing out had people be or captured in the slave trade. The Khans had people captured in the slave trade. The Gadambe had people captured in the slave trade. So how can we say that these people are just Judah or Judah, period, when we see that they say that according to their oral traditions and even in their name, they're Gad and Dan. Also, oral history had it that the Gadambe people claims their origins in Israel in the Middle East from where they migrated in different groups through Upper Egypt and along the Nile in Ethiopia and subsequently through Benin in Nigeria. All right. So continuing, Journal of Mother Tongue, Biblical Hermeneutics and Theology, December 2019 issue. We're going to start at the very top. It says rulership among the Gadambes or the Dames is worthy of study with the reason that the Dame had a unique and distinctive system of rulership. Their rulership style is absolutely theocracy, all right? And that means giving or worship of God. Thus, a system of governments where rulers were priests with the divine institution. The primeval Dambe had a system of governments like the ancient Hebrew before the time of monarchy. Hence, the idea of chieftainy and stewards is quite borrowed. Okrong, after a careful study of the Gadambe governance, comments that this is a form of traditional governance, can properly speaking be described as theocracy. Their rulers were just like the Israelites under Moses, Joshua, and the judges. A straight line can be drawn from Israel's priestly experience to that of the Dangbe, all right? And we should expect this if these people are claimed to be descendants of Israelites, all right? The ruler here is a priest or a spiritual leader whose rulership mandate is given by a deity of the land. In this case of Israel, Yahweh. All right. And I believe the Gadambes refer to the Most High as Mawu. Mawu. All right. And if it's a guy in the watching the video right now, just gonna check it out later. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that's what I believe it is. But again, we see this ancient Hebrew governance amongst the Gadambe. We see that they claim to be from the tribes of Gad and also Dan. And we see that they also have the ancient Israelite traditions resembling the Old Testament amongst them. So, you know, it's laughable to say that these people are just Judah. Another people that was involved or affected by the slave trade brought to the Americas and the Caribbeans, the Efik. The Efik people of Calabar, Nigeria. Now, dealing with the Igbo and their Niger Deltas book, it says that the Efiks are related to the Ibibio, Anag, the Keats, Oran, and Ikon. They claim that their ancestors were Egyptian Jews who migrated from Egypt, from Egypt through Ethiopia to Sudan, and from Sudan to Nigeria via Ghana and Cameroon. All right. So let's dig into it some more. And we're going to go to the Palestinian origins of the Efiks. All right. And we're going to find out that the Efiks carried their name from Palestine. Now, I know this is kind of hard to see, but bear with me if it is. It says, it may be recalled that it was the late Asin Ekpi Oku V Obong of Calabar who, during the Hart inquiry, said that the Efiks were an Oriental tribe whose home was in Palestine. For mere recapitulation, all right, excuse me, family. So for mere recapitulation, it might be necessary to run through section 2 of this work on disruptions in Palestine, the various wars, battles, and revolts drifted the city populations into different areas in the Oriental world. One of the largest of these upheavals, which drove the people out of Palestine, was the Roman conquest in 63 BC and the revolts that followed in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. Among those who escaped to Egypt and ancient Nubia were the Efiks, originally spelled Afik or Hafik. These Hafiks were drifted through Egypt into the Nile Valley and further into ancient Nubia, which is fully described in section 2. And y'all willing sometime this week or next week, I actually do a book reading over this full book or over a couple chapters from this book because it's got some very good information in it. But it says this was between the 3rd and 4th centuries AD. Before going further, the origin of the name Efik is to be cleared in the heart. It is recorded thus: the name Efik, which derives from the verb fig to press, was at a much later date given to them by the Ibibios, whose one encounter or on the other hand had taste of Efik brutal assertiveness. This is far from the truth. The Efiks carried their name as original from the Palestine. In my earlier work, it is clearly stated that the name evolves from the Hebrew Afik or Hafik, and this is actually a territory in Asher, which is in Judges 1:31, as we're about to read. Neither did Asher drive out the inhabitants of Akko, nor the inhabitants of Zidon, nor Allah, nor Achisbi, nor Helba, nor Afik, nor Rehob. Now we're going to see that once they did migrate from Israel and migrating to Nigeria, because we see that they migrated fairly recent. What did it say? Around the 3rd and 4th centuries AD. You know, the Igbos were already settled prior to that, and we're going to see once they migrated into Igbo land that they were referred to as Hebrews by the Igbos. But it says, when they settled at Utu, the Igbos called them Ibrutu, a corruption of the words Hebrew and Utu, to mean the Hebrews of Utu, in which Hebrews refer to their Oriental stock, and Utu to their new place of settlement. All right. Let's see, where should we read from? We're going to go down right here where it says, rather it was originally evolved from the Hebrew word sabon, which means great or omniscient, and given to the place by the Efiks. Everything great and renowned was attributed to Ebon, and so God of the universe, or omniscient God, is to the Efiks Abasi Ebon, as derived from the Hebrew words Abishai Sabon. All right, so we even see the name that the Efik people, call the Most High is Abishai Sabon, which means omniscient God. All right. Again, the Efiks call the Most High Abasi Ebon, which evolved from the Hebrew words Abishai Sabon. All right. And again, we see that they were referred to by Hebrews by their fellow Hebrew brethren, the Igbos. And we also see that they do claim descent, or they do claim that they migrated from Israel into Calabar, Nigeria. Now, here is a ancestry table of the Efiks, and who they say they descend from. Again, the Efik Hebrew ancestry table. We can see over here that they claim descent from Asher as well by way of Amal, and we can see within their language these people would be called Ema. We got a scripture verse or scripture reference right here as well in First Chronicles chapter 7 verses 30 through 40. We also see descendants of Gad within Efik land by way of Atai or Atai. All right, we see scripture references again, First Chronicles 12, 11 through 14, First Chronicles 2, 34 through 35. We also see the descendants of Judah within Efik land by way of, let's see how do you pronounce this, Bachoru, which they call Ibuku. And we can see that in First Chronicles 9:43, as well as First Chronicles 2 and 6. They also have descendants of Benjamin in Efik land, right, by way of Abisu, which they call Adusu. All right, we can see that in First Chronicles 8 and verse 5. And we also have descendants of Levi in Efik land by way of Edo, and as they call in their language as well, Edo. And we can see that in First Chronicles 6 and verse 2. And again, once I do the book reading, we'll break this down a little bit more. But just for now, these are descendants of Northern and Southern Kingdom Israelites amongst the Efik people in Calabar. Again, Asher, Gad, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. All right. And all of them are Negroes. They're not Native Americans, Aztecs, or whatever you all like to call them. Again, we're going to deal with the Yoruba real quick. Reviewing origins of the Yoruba and the lost tribes of Israel once more. Derek Lang. It mentions that contrary to other African peoples, such as also the neighboring Igbo in southwestern Nigeria, the Yoruba never claimed an Israelite identity, although several authors pointed out the existence of Israelite customs among the Yoruba. They saw them as a side effect of Israelite influences and not as a result of a direct cultural transfer through migration to or from the northern kingdom of Israel. All right. So when authors or scholars see this influence or see these traditions or see the Israelite traditions and customs amongst the Yoruba, they usually brush it off as some type of side effect of Israelite influences rather than just the Yoruba themselves being Israelites. It goes on to say more recently, a re-examination of the Oyo dynastic tradition in combination with a comparison of cultural traits led to the conclusion that the direct links must have existed between the northern Israelites and the Yoruba, right? So there's a direct link between the northern tribes of Israel and the Yoruba of Nigeria. However, owing to the incomplete study of Oyo tradition, this conclusion did not indicate the precise nature of the historical connection between ancient Israel and the Oyo Yoruba. All right. So again, because they did not study completely the Oyo tradition, they didn't make the complete connection between the Israelites and the Yoruba. So avoiding the unmentionable notion of a mass migration from the ancient Near East, it suggests instead that the remnants of the Israelite traditions and culture traits were the results of sporadic influences from Syro-Palestine via Egypt, or a long-lasting trade relationships between Phoenician North Africa and Sub-Saharan West Africa. All right, but from a comparative analysis of the Oyo dynastic traditions and ancient Near East history, it appears that Israelites migrated to West Africa subsequently to the fall of the Assyrian Empire. All right, I thought these people went into the Americas. I thought these people got on boats and sailed across the ocean, to the Americas. That's what I thought. But it goes on to say, where did I leave off? Left off right here. It says, indeed, Oyo tradition, all right? So Oyo Yoruba tradition reveals that the ancestral Yoruba were mainly composed of Israelites who, in the course of their history, became influenced by Assyrians' views of the past events. Okay, so according to Yoruba tradition, or Oyo Yoruba tradition, their ancestry were composed of Israelites. Providing precious details about the ancient Near Eastern history of their ancestors. It begins with some information on the Omride dynasty, which ruled over Israel in the second half of the 10th and first half of the 9th century. It continues by emphasizing the importance of the first Assyrian intervention in Israelite history, which took place in 841 BCE. And at the same time, it underlines the subservient role of Omasanda or Jehu with respect to the Assyrian conquerors. Subsequently, it depicts favorably some of the Israelite kings and alluding to the Assyrian conquest of Samaria in 722 BCE. And this is all within the Yoruba traditions. All right. It mentions the departure of the people into exile under the leadership of Phiron or Sargon II from now on. Substituting Assyrian for Israelite kings, it describes the settlement of the people under their new kings in the region of Haburo or Herbor / Eboho, their main place of exile. It refers to the death of the last metropolitan Assyrian king in the Nineveh in 612 BC, and hence the end of the Assyrian exile. First in the sympathetic and later in a hostile way, reflecting pro and anti-Assyrian sentiments among immigrant groups to West Africa. All right. And we also know that the Yoruba Oyo traditions or Oyo ancient Israelite traditions are factual because, the ancient Israelites had a Yoruba component amongst them. And we know this because if we look at this article, which was already pulled out before, the history of African gene flows in Southern Europeans and Levantines and Jews, it tells us that a parsimonious explanation for these observations is that they reflect a history in which many of the Jewish groups descended from a common ancestral population, which was itself admixed with Africans prior to the beginning of the Jewish diaspora that occurred in the 6th or the 8th and 6th centuries BCE. Now, go read this whole thing if you want to know more information. But I've brought this out plenty of times. I'm just breaking it out just because it relates to this topic, or to the Yoruba rather. But it says the Yoruba Nigerians were represented for the Sub-Saharan Africans in the Jews prior to the 8th and 6th century BCE. Why is that important? Because the last source just told us that the Yoruba Oyo tradition reveals a migration from the Assyrian exile between the 8th and 6th centuries BCE into West Africa. All right. So just lining it up. And again, we can even go even deeper on how we know the Yoruba are Israelites, because even here recently, and I believe it was the 14th century, you had I believe you had Jews from Morocco. That's what it was. They called the Imo Yoquayim. They came down from Morocco and actually settled amongst the Yoruba, because I'm pretty sure they realized that the Yoruba were ancient brothers from the past, had same traditions and customs, things of that sort. But again, the ancient Israelites would have had Yoruba DNA. Now let's deal with the Igbo real quick. Abraham's children, race identity, and the DNA of the chosen people. It says the Nigerian Igbo, whose name is supposedly a corruption of Hebrew, who claim descent variously from tribes of Ephraim, Manasseh, Levi, Zebulun, and Gad. All right. So I hope you all are starting to realize how flawed this 12 tribes chart is, because they're not even taking the oral traditions of our ancestors into account. We all have descendants of Igbos, Akan, Yoruba, Efik. You know, we can continue. We can bring out multiple or various other tribes who we descend from, who claim, ancestry from northern and southern kingdom tribes, but it's not taken into account with our brethren here in America. It says they practice circumcision and loath to submit to the authority of the ruling class, and are known for their business acumen and technical prowess. Now let's continue on to Igbo history. Hebrew exiles of Erie Kingdom. Now one of the ancestors of the Igbos go by the way, or is called Erie, and we can find that name in the Bible, being a descendant of Gad, and this is one of the main components of the Igbo people. Now Erie and his companions were not the only group of Hebrew Israelites who had migrated from Israel into Igbo land. It goes on to say that other migrations followed. The movements of the Hebrew Israelites, which gave rise to subsequent migrations, were stated in the Bible, and these movements were the results of God's curse on them for their disobedience. It says Alazi clearly states as follows that they began around 718 BC when King Manasseh V of Assyria defeated Israel and drove away the inhabitants after rendering their entire land desolate. All right. So again, in the beginning of the video, I brought out a source telling you all, or stating that, West African oral traditions actually reflect a mass migration, after the fall of the Assyrian, or after the Assyrian exiles. And we keep seeing this pop up within these people's oral traditions. It goes on to say that the Assyrian king brought in a large number of pagans from Assyria to occupy every inch of the land of the scattered Jews, so as to blot out their identity as a people of God. However, 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, out of the 12 tribes of Israel, were left behind in their original places. The next scattering of the Hebrews and continuation of God's plan was by the Babylonians under King Nebuchadnezzar. First in 536 BC and second in 586 BC. All right, so it goes on to say, next, it can be seen that the Erie-led migration, which was the first led migration, supposedly after the Exodus, laid the foundation for subsequent migrations of Hebrew Israelites into Igbo land, as defined in this book. This is why history credited Erie as the founding father of the Igbo people of Nigeria, occupying the southeast and south zones of Nigeria. So again, we see that there's multiple, or the Igbos claim that they have multiple migrations of Israelites into their territories. They claim that after the Assyrian exile, you had Israelites coming to Igbo land, and even after the Babylonian. Now the problem with this statement is that our camp brothers tell us that all the 10 tribes after the Assyrian exile got on boats, and made their way to Americas and populated it. Yet the information is showing contrary. And even this picture right here is a depiction of King Erie. All right, King Erie being God. And here's again another ancestral table from the Igbos. This is just dealing with Gad specifically. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Gad. Also go down to Erie, and then Erie and all of his sons and the tribes that formed in Igbo land. Continues on, and that's just dealing with the Gad clan amongst the Igbos. And again, the children of Erie. And they're to the clans today. Now, within Igbo land, you can also find Judah. So we saw that, a lot of these people have Gad, or they descend from Gad. We can also see that they have Judah as well. And Judah can be found in Etam or Etham. And we can find a scripture reference for this word in First Chronicles chapter 4, verse 3. And these were of the fathers of Etham, Jezreel, Ishma, and Itbash, and the name of their sister was Hazelelphalim. All right, and if you continue or go up to verse 1, you'll see that this is talking about the people of Judah. All right, but again, you do have descendants of Judah within Igbo land. And again, shalom to everyone in the chat. And it's real funny that we can find a lot of names or biblical names from Chronicles within the Igbo land that I'm going to do a separate video just because it's so many. This isn't the only city of Judah that we can find within Igbo land. They got Umu Nebo. It's a lot. So I'm going to just continue on so far. We can also find Levi in Igbo land by way of Omorka or Amok. In Nehemiah 12 and verse 7, we see that Amok is listed off. And these were the chief of the priests and their brethren in the days of Joshua. Again, you can go back and read Nehemiah 12 from verse 1 for full context. But again, Amok is the son of Levi. We can also see that Zebulun made its way down into into Igbo land as well. Descendants of Zebulun made their way down into Igbo land as well. And this particular source is coming from Igbo's Hebrew exiles from ancient Israel. And it says includes over 25% of African Americans. So again, all these tribes we're bringing out, 25% of African Americans will go back to these Igbos who are not just Judah, who are not just Judah. But again, on page 25, it says legend that one of the descendants of Eri from Gad, who first settled in Antisha at the bank of the river Niger, near the domain of his relatives from the descendants of Zebulun, Ozubulu, in the Nabra state. All right. Had to travel across the river Niger to the ancient city of Benin or kingdom to prepare the war medicine, talisman, or charm for prospective contender to the stool of Oba of Benin. But again, we see that the Ozubulu people or the Ozubulu branch of the Igbos are descendants of Zebulun. So we see Judah, we see Levi, we see Gad, we see Zebulun. All right. Again, this is why the 12 tribes chart is flawed. These West African peoples, these West African tribes do not all just send from one tribe, which is Judah or Levi or Benjamin. As we can see, these people have multiple tribes amongst them. We can also see Manasseh amongst the Igbos. Cow Without Tail, Book 1. It goes on to say, let's see where we should start. Let's start at the very top. It says the claim of being of ancient Gadite origin for or the head and not the tail of human race is even seen in the dialect spellings, pronunciations, and meanings of Isha as found in Insibity or all these other pronunciations of that word, all of which refer largely to the head source first of origin. By the way, First Chronicles 4:42 tells us that Isha happens to be one of the heads of the families of Manasseh, the presumed ancestors of the present-day Amashi clan of Igbo land. All right? So the Amashi are descendants of Manasseh, and they are known as the Umu, children of Manasseh. Umu Manasseh. All right? You also have the Umu Eri, the Umu Obuzulu, and so forth, so on. Again, I'm going to do a separate video bringing out, all these biblical names and children we can find within Igbo land. So just be tuned for that. All right, and we can also find Naphtali within Igbo land as well by way of Aharia. All right, and we look at Numbers 1 and 15, and it says of Naphtali, Aharia, the son of Enon. All right, and again, the descendants of Naphtali by way of Aharia are goes by the name of Umu Aharia. All right, and again, you see the map right here, Aharia, Nigeria. This is within Igbo land. And correct, like the brother said within the chat, only Afro natives, yes, only Afro natives and Hispanics are Israel. I would agree with that. Or even Native Americans or Hispanics with the E marker. You all would be considered Israelites as well from my studies. All right. So these are all the names I just went over. Really, and this is coming from Cow Without Tail, Book 1. Again, we see Eri and his descendants, Umu Eri. Rodi also is a descendant, or Rodi is also a descendant of Gad. You can find that in Exodus as well, or Numbers. Amina, yes, Anima, yes, that's what it is. Anima. These are the Roli descendants. Umu Roli. Amashi, again, Umu Manasseh. Ozubulu, Zebulun, Umu Zebulun, and Aharia, Umu Aharia. All right, so we can see that various descendants of the northern kingdoms and southern kingdoms made their way into Western Africa, and they broke off into these different tribes we see today. Your Igbo, your Akan, your Efik. And again, all of these tribes have biblical names. Akan is a son of Judah. All right, Efik is a town in the territory of Asher. All right, Igbo is Hebrew, right? So, and again, we can see that they even have territories and tribes named after the tribes of Israel. So again, this is why the 12 tribe chart is flawed and inaccurate, extremely. Continuing. In September 1996, 5 Israeli Jews who were on the research mission came to Ugulari in search of Eri, whom they claimed belonged to the lost tribe of Israel. To sustain their claim, they quoted Genesis 46:16 and Numbers 26:16 of the Bible, where it stated that Eri was one of the sons of Gad, who was one of the sons of Jacob. It could be recalled that the sons of Jacob made up 12 tribes of Israel. They gave account to their visit to Igbo Ukwu, Oreri, and Ukwu, who were strongly identified as descendants of Eri. All right. So again, the descendants of Eri, they all have their own separate villages, just like the descendants of Zebulun have their own separate villages. It goes on to say in a reception held at Ugu Eri, all right, this will be a city, more than likely where the tribes of Gad will be inhabited. The Israeli Jews told Ugulari people that they were on a mission to trace their relationship with Eri, whom they were told is the founder of the Igbo race. They told the delighted Ugulari people that some archaeologists would, who guided their tour on the country, wanted them to end their search in Igbo Ukwu, where the museum gave them some information about Eri, but they insisted that they must be shown the settlements of Eri. After much pressure, they were brought to Ugulari to see things for themselves. All right. He goes on to say, after the grand reception, Ugulari assigned some people who took the visitors to Heirarchy, where Eri and his followers settled and lived until their death. All right. So Eri from the Bible, even a Rodi and a Reli, they all died in Nigeria. They left Sinai and migrated to Nigeria. But it says Ugulari people explained that Heirarchy was the settlement camp near Odanduli stream between Evit and Igbo Izunu villages in Ugulari. They saw that Heirarchy still retained the vestiges of the earlier settlements of Area, right? So they still had some of the earliest stages or early vestiges from the settlement of Eri. It goes on to say they saw the overgrown I guess I mixed that part, but it goes on to say I'm sorry, family. I think I left something out, but I guess we're gonna have to skip over that for now. But it goes on to say where they took the video shots of the ancient shrines, the sacred temples of Erie Kingdom, including Obu-Ga, which means the home of Gad, named after Gad, the father of Erie, Genesis 46:6. They requested the chief Juju priest, all right, and some of these more than likely will go back to the Levites that they have, but it says they requested the chief Juju priest, some elders, women, children present on the occasion to perform some traditional ceremonies, which were acknowledged to be identical with those of the ancient Hebrew people. The ceremonies included religious child circumcision, the custom of confining their women for a specific period after childbirth, and naming the children after specific events and experiences. They filmed these events for study at home. So you even had the Ashkenazim or the Israelim come down into this territory and film them doing some of their ancient practices. And yes, again, like the brother said in the chat, you can find many Israelite tribes in Africa and in sub-Saharan Africa. And that's what I plan to start doing here within the next few weeks, starting to bring more information out on a lot of tribes that we don't know about or don't talk about a lot. All right. But let's see where we're going to continue to go. We're going to skip down to this last highlighting. It says the interesting thing about their visit is that they confirmed the age-long speculation that the Igbo are related to the Jews and gave credibility stamp to the school of thought that strongly believes that the Igbo gave their origin in the kingdom of Israel, all right, or in the Hebrew kingdom of Israel, all right. And again, we see that these people had Naphtali, Zebulun, Gad, Dan, Levi, and there's even more tribes that they have that I didn't bring out. But again, we can see how we cannot base, our thoughts off people's visions, because that's highly flawed based off our ancestors or traditions, as we see. And again, this last source right here is concerning the Igbos, and it's coming from the Obadiah Allowance. All right, the Obadiah Allowance, and this was just recently published, dealing with the Igbos and their credibility as Israelites and all that. But it says there exists a claim that the Igbos of Nigeria belong to the children of Israel. There are millions of inhabitants in and out Igbo land who belong to the Igbo tradition. Much has been written about the Igbo traditions, which attest to the claim, including historical and anthropological work detailing lore, customs, sociology, physiology, and history, despite strong evidence of their connection to the biblical Israelites due to forced conversions to Christianity. All right, this is why many African Americans are Christians, because we were forced to convert to Christianity. There are few rabbinical authorities today who decide that Igbos must undergo either a full conversion or undergo strict procedures to remove all doubts and reintegrate them with Jewish people. What is the halakha regarding the Israelite identity of the Igbos? And can halakha Jews marry them? Answer. Due to the transgression of our ancestors, our nation was divided into two kingdoms, which the Igbo descends from both, and a lot of the other West African tribes descend from both, before the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem. During the time of the prophet Jeremiah, it goes on to say, while the vast majority of the Israelites went to Babylon, some Israelites relocated to Egypt and founded the Elephantine Jewish community. All right, and we actually did a video connecting the Mandi people with this Elephantine Jewish community, and even better, Israel. But this is the kicker. It says genetic studies of the Y chromosome of Igbo men demonstrate that they originated in the Levant basin. All right. So, family, what is the Y chromosome of the Igbos? What is the Y chromosome of the Igbos? Because again, it says genetic studies of the Y chromosome of Igbo men demonstrate that they originated in the Levant basin. According to Igbo DNA, 90% of these peoples are E1B1A. Shout out to the brother Isaiah Henderson. Thanks for the answer. But again, 90% of these people are E1B1A. Before I even continue to read, we're going to backtrack a little bit because they just said genetic studies confirm that these people originate in the Levant based off their Y DNA haplogroup. The Igbo are E1B1A. The Yoruba are E1B1A. The Akan are E1B1A. The Efik are E1B1A. Majority of the West African Jewish tribes or Israelite tribes are E1B1A, 70% and up. So not only did they confirm the Igbos as being genetically from the Levant basin, but you just confirmed everybody else with E1B1A that has Israelite history from being from the Levant basin as well. So I thank you for that. But again, genetic studies of the Y chromosome of Igbo men demonstrate that they originated in the Levant basin, sharing genetic links with Ashkenazic or with Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews alike. And also the problem with this statement is the only Y chromosome that Igbos share with Sephardics and Ashkenazi is E1B1A. Again, we showed previously or last episode in the E1B1A legacy in Israel, we showed that Ashkenazis and Sephardic Jews have E1B1A. So that's the only common link that they have. It says, while there is yet an exhaustive academic study or genetic study on the Igbos, the majority of those who have reported their autosomal and Y chromosome DNA supports that their ancestors migrated from the Levant into East Africa and then settled in West Africa. All right. So when we say E1B1A migrated from the Levant into Western Africa, you know, we actually have the proof. We actually have the genetic data to prove that. All right. And again, this study I showed about the Yoruba DNA being in the ancient Israelites shows you that the Israelites had E1B1A. And again, that just goes with this article, letting us know that the Igbo man did originate from the Levant basin. But again, it says, moreover, Igbos are organized according to clans. The elders transmit genealogies orally back to our patriarch Jacob, which I already showed you. Indeed, many Igbos descend from Kohanim and Levites. All right. And again, this is how how we can make an argument for the Kohanim or the Kohen model haplotype actually being EP2. All right, because we see the Igbos that have Levitical clan and Kohanim clans with E1B1A, and we also see the Limba Kohanim clans with E1B1A and even E1B1B, and we even see the Samaritan Levites Kohanim clan with E1B1B. So it's easy to say that, you know, the Levites and even the Israelites would have had these E markers. It says these facts attest to the ancient Israelite origin of the Igbos. Moreover, the historiography data written during the time of the Songhai Empire reveals that Portuguese and Moroccan Jews traded in the region of Igbo land. So again, this is big. Records also records also evidence the union between Portuguese Jews and West Africans in the regions whereby local women underwent halakha conversions to the Jewish people. Such was the case in Senegal, Gambia, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, and Angola. In the 6th and 17th century, some Portuguese Jews took their African wives with them to port cities in Antwerp and Amsterdam, where they were interrogated into prospective communities. The presence of the Israelites along the Niger River has been known by the Jewish authorities in the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Lithuania, and Suriname. All right, so they've always knew about these Jews amongst the Niger River, and that's not just talking about the Igbos. So again, rabbinical letters addressed to the Igbos by chief rabbis Dr. Solomon Herschel, Lewin, David Also David Meldola and Gowan of Vilna support the idea that there were contracts between European Jewish communities and the Igbo Israelites. All right, and we can also go to the Talmud and see that these people wrote a letter to the Igbos all the way back in the 18th century. But it says all of the correspondence for the aforementioned rabbinical authorities address the Igbos as brethren of Israel. Accordingly, there is no doubt of their origins nor of their Holocaust status as Israelites. But again, I really love this article because it confirms that E1B1A originated in the Levant, as we've been saying, and it's telling us they know a lot more than we do, or at least that they're hiding it. And again, if the Igbos originated in the Levant basin, so did the other West African Jewry, because again, they share the same genetics. They come from the same people. All right. And with that, that's it. We're not going to get into this today. We're going to get into that another day. But again, we're going to go back and see if there's any questions in the chat. Catch up on the chat. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them. I hope you all enjoyed the show. And he's okay. So he says, I mean, like within the clans of each tribe, yes, you can find multiple Israelite tribes or clans within each tribe. Like we just did with the Igbos. We saw multiple Israelite tribes within the within the Igbo tribe. Just like we did with the Akan, we saw multiple Israelite tribes within the Akan tribe. Same with the Efik. We see multiple Israelite tribes within these tribes. The brother says, what about the people of Mozambique, Kenya? I believe some tribes are Israelites there. Yes, indeed. There are Israelites there. And we're going to get ready and bring some of that information out soon. Again, I've just been very, very busy, man, with school and all that stuff. But y'all will and I'll get some time here soon to bring some information out on the East African Bantus and their Israelite connections. Even when we was looking at that DNA study concerning the Yoruba DNA being amongst the ancient Israelites, they also used a Bantu tribe known as the Luya. All right, the Luya Bantu people. They use their DNA as well. So you can actually say the Luya Bantu and Yoruba DNA, which is both E1B1A, was amongst the ancient Israelites. And according to the Luya oral traditions, they come from, or they migrated from a place called Mizri. All right, Mizri, which they refer to as Egypt. All right. And we know the Israelites after Assyrian exile, or majority of the times they went into Africa, they settled first within Egypt and then dispersed from there. So, yeah, there's a lot of East African tribes. And even if you go look at the video I just dropped, I forgot what it was called. I believe something like Bantu Israelite History 2, I believe. But it was dealing with the Kikuyu, the Hosa, the Zulu, the Zulu being tribes of Naphtali, and the Hosa being tribes of Naphtali as well. And even the Kikuyu, they claim descent from Judah, and as well as Asher. And yes, it is why Black people have large amounts of West African ancestry. Yes, if you're looking at it autosomally, we would have large amounts of West African ancestry. That's just because, our ancestors came from West Africa. From Senegal all the way down to the Eastern Cape. The brother says shalom. Shalom, brother. Please also look into the Luba tribe of Congo. Yes, we've already brought information out on the Luba tribe. We know about you all, brother. We definitely know about you all, the Baluba. I was reading a book one time, I brought out a book one time. I believe this is actually in my first video I did on the Bantus. The name Baluba supposedly means lost tribe. There's people, or there's authors that say, or that basically saying you all have a lot of Semitic affinities within your languages. You all have a lot of Hebrew similarities. We've already dug into, the Baluba of the Congo, and we definitely know about you all's Israelite ancestry. A lot of you all down there. The brother said, it's funny how the Bantus like to argue that they are the only Israelites in Africa and like to exclude West Africans. Yeah, that's real funny. That's real funny. And I noticed that a lot from both sides. You have Igbos who say, Igbos are the only Israelites in Africa. You have some Bantus who say Bantus are the only Israelites in Africa. And what's funny was a few weeks ago, I was actually reading the Bantu Bible in Kikongo, and I was reading the Yoruba Bible in the Yoruba language. And when I say the languages are nearly the same, the way they, say the biblical patriarchs' names, from everything is very similar. So linguistically, West Africans and Bantus have a lot in common. Traditionally, customly, they have a lot in common. Genetically, they are the same. They just, dispersed. All right. And we can actually make an argument that Bantus and West Africans broke off from one big population, which was the Israelites. So it's just Israelite beef. That's all. Yes, there are Israelites in Mozambique too. Maku or Makua people, Sena people. All right. Yes, we know about the Sena people. And the Makua people, my first time hearing about them. So it will indeed have to look into them. It's a lot of Bantu ethnic groups or a lot of Bantu tribes, so a lot of them I'm not familiar with. But I am familiar with your Balubas, your Kikuyus, your Limbas, your Mavumbus, your Shona. I'm familiar with a lot of them, just not all of them. Indeed, we do come from a strong line of African Hebrews, all right? We do. That's facts. Our ancestors came to Africa and we took over. We took over. They're supported with the genetics and the history. The brother says, are you going to write a book? Such a compilation of parts of books you're using. And actually, since you mentioned it, I am in the works and getting a book together. I actually had a book done, but the topic just seemed redundant. So I'm actually chopping that up and just releasing those as just separate articles, probably on academia and stuff like that, while I'm in the process of getting the other book done. Because we already have books out of the color of the Israelites and how they migrated into Africa. So I'm going to do something a little different than that. That's kind of mirroring your Babylon to Timbuktu. So yes, I will be publishing a book in the near future, y'all willing, next year or two. Kenya too, such as the Kikuyu and Obaluya. Yes, the Obaluya, that was the Luya tribe that I was talking about earlier, that was in a genetic study of that the ancient Israelites had. So the ancient Israelites would have had the Abaluya DNA and Yoruba, which is E1B1A. Egypt is the tribe of Japhet. What do you mean by that, brother? Would you specify on that? Are you saying that tribes of Japhet or descendants of Japhet live in Egypt today? I would agree with that. But as far as Egypt, the descendant of Egypt or the descendants of Egypt or Mizraim or Mizri being Japhet, I would not agree with that. And just ask your question in the chat, brother. If you have a question, I'm catching up on all of the questions, so I'm a few minutes behind you all. So if you have a question, just type it. And yes, West Africans essentially are Bantu. Bantus essentially are West Africans. it's just name different name barriers that's dividing our people. Okay, so he's saying now they are because the Ottoman Turks took over. Yes, I would agree with that statement. I would agree with that. The brother says, not now. They always have been multiple kingdoms migrating. Okay, so now I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. And I would agree with this statement as well. Egypt has been a hodgepodge of nations, or not of nations. You've had a lot of different people going through there. A lot of different pharaohs who were not of Egyptian origin. So I can agree with that to some extent. You definitely did have pharaohs who were not of Egyptian origin. You did have the Hyksos, the Semitic Hyksos, ruling over Egypt. You did have Ramses III, who's not a native Egyptian or descendant of Ham, uh, ruling. So I would agree with that. Brother says, what is your take when our people test for small amounts of Asian and indigenous ancestry? See, with that right there, brother, that's just admixture, autosomal SNPs and stuff like that. So I mean, it doesn't tell you who you are, right? You can be 100% European, but still descend from a Negro male. You know what I'm saying? That's why I believe, or that's why I go so hard for the Y chromosome, because that basically is an identification marker. It tells you who you descend from, and that's something that cannot change over time. So that's my point on it. Really, it really doesn't mean anything. It just shows that you had ancestors or you had people in your family that mixed with those people, and you picked up autosomes or SNPs from them. He says Japhet came from the north, Ham or the Berbers, descendants of Goliath, came from America to Africa. All right, brother. I don't agree with that at all. Anybody coming from America to Africa. And I definitely do not agree with Berbers being descendants of Ham or Goliath either. But if you have information on that, please, you can drop it in the chat. Berbers definitely are Semitic, but I see the whole Bantu thing like the whole Caribbean and American thing. It's all tribalism. Yes, it is. That we have learned to be contagious or continuous of one another through colonialism. And yes, I do agree that it is tribalism. And again, we've been separated for months. I mean, not for months, for years, all right? For years. This is why we have descendants of Gad and Ghana and in Nigeria and in Central Africa. You know what I'm saying? This is why we have descendants of Judah in East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, because these tribes were scattered. All right. We might have different customs or different different customs pertaining to different things, but overall we still have that ancient Israelite influence amongst our people. Yes, bro, I see your questions. I work with both Bantus and West African. Are you asking the question, brother? Is it still Israelites within Egypt, or you're saying it's still Israelites within Egypt? If so, I would say more than likely, yes. Not a large amount, but I'm pretty sure it is. Those who shall be left from Egypt, right? Isaiah 11:11. So the Fulani, from what I know, they have Semitic markers and European markers. A lot of them have haplogroup R, and some of them have haplogroup E as well. So they are a mixture of Shem and Japhet. And even I got a genetic study talking about how that admixture the Eurasian admixture that they have is from about 1,500 years ago. So the Fulani would be a mixture of people. I don't really see Hamitic markers amongst them. Again, I just see like E3A, E3B, and even haplogroup R, just like in the Chadic people. says some of our people mix with the Fulani, so you will find some Israelites among them, but I think the Fulani are generally non-Israelites. Yes, some are, some aren't, some are, some aren't. You just got to look at the Y chromosome. This is why some sources said that you have Israelites settle amongst the Fulani, all right, and they was called the Puyuls or the Paluls. The brother says, how come the Igbo, Ashanti, and some of the others you mentioned today do a great job of tracking biblical family lineages, and yet others, Luba, didn't? And how did we get there? All right. And the best way I can answer that question is if you look at the migrations between the West Africans and the Bantus. A lot of the West Africans went into territory that was not inhabited. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the people within West Africa, a lot of the places in West Africa was not inhabited until, these people started getting there, bringing in this agriculture and stuff. And even the people that was there, it wasn't, highly populated as Central and East Africa. And in regards to the Bantu migrations, a lot of the times the Bantus would come in and they would come in contact with the Pygmy and Khoisan and even other East African tribes, intermarry with them, assimilate with them, and things like that. So I believe it's just based on the migration, the different migration routes, and the people you all came in contact with. And if you want, once I finish up with these comments, I'll drop a link to a video I went in just showing the Bantu migration, when it happened, how it happened, what you all did. You all basically came in, kicked ass, took people as slaves, took the wives of the people, and pushed the pygmies and stuff further down into South Africa. And you all mixed with them, a lot of them as well, but that should be expected. Hosea 7 and 8 does not tell you the complexion of the Northern Kingdom. All right, so don't say that. We just reviewed information of the Northern Kingdom telling us who they come from. Don't disregard our ancestors' history for your false logic. All right. Our ancestors told us they come from Northern Kingdom Israelites. That's who we gonna say they come from. We not gonna say we come from the ideologies of a man's dream. All right. We gonna say we come from who our ancestors come from. Yeah. And Hosea 7 and 8 is not saying Ephraim shall be light skinned or white, whatever you're trying to say. Yes, this is good Black history indeed, because again, if we don't know what our ancestors, we don't know the history of our ancestors, we don't know who we are. And that was the main reason a lot of our people were getting caught up in the camps, because they did not know the history of their ancestors. We didn't know the history of the Akan. We didn't know the Akan said they come from Judah, Levi, and even Gad. We didn't know the Igbo said they come from all these tribes. We did not know these things. All right. So once we started to realize these things, we started to realize that the 12 tribes chart is definitely flawed. Will you collab with other channels? Many groups don't have these truths. And yes, I will collab with other channels in the near future. I've already done a couple collabs already with a few brothers just coming on and talking. Y'all willing? I'm trying to bring on a brother from the UK to just, give his side of the awakening over there. How our people are, realizing or awakening to them being Israelites. Just the basic struggles and the steps of being awakened and realizing you're an Israelite, changing life, coming to Torah, and leaving all the worldly things away. And but yeah, I will definitely do collabs with other brothers. Of course, I always got my brother Lion Farm on here when we dealing with the DNA. So yeah, man. And if anybody has any suggestions or collabs or anybody I should reach out to, make sure you give those suggestions. And Fulani are Israelites. I would agree. Some are, some aren't. Yes, aren't all Israelim Bantus just different migration patterns? So that word Bantu, I guess you can just say it came in later. It can be traced back to Hebrew origins, meaning house, like Bet or Betu, Bantu, Betu, meaning house, like Bethel, house of the Lord. But yeah, just different migration routes, different migration patterns. Some Bantus came from North Africa, some Bantus came in through Arabia. So, hey. And I would not say that all Bantus are Israelites. I would say a good amount of them are. And I'm just basing it off the DNA. I'm just basing it off the DNA. You have some tribes with that's 50% E1B1A, 60%, 70, 80. So it really just depends on the DNA of the tribes. But again, majority, I would say majority are, for a lot are. The brother says, what do you think of E1 and E1A, the older haplogroups predating E1B1A? I barely see any info on the haplogroups. All right. And this is a hard question because I was just talking with a brother about this the other day, trying to, see why we don't see a lot of populations of people with E1 and E1A. And my only explanation was, or my only assumption is that those E1 and E1A populations more than likely mutated faster or mutated very fast into the other mutations or the parahaplogroups, which is why we don't see them, as much. And even those that we do see, E1A and E1, those could be just people who didn't mutate. You feel me? Who didn't mutate and ended up in certain populations. It could be E1s or E1As and Israelite populations, Ishmaelite populations, so forth, so on. But again, I don't have a definitive answer on that. I would definitely have to do more research on that. If you can email me, brother, I'll do some research and I'll email you something if I can find it. And again, my email is ballw333@gmail.com. And I'll email you some information if I find it. He's saying, no, I'm saying it's still there. Isaiah 11:11, also Zephaniah 3:10. All right. Just talking about the Israelites being in Egypt. I would agree some are within Egypt. Noah was a white giant, his father and mother being Aboriginal, maybe Lamanite sons of Ammon. Oh, man. All right. I'm not even going to get into that. Even the Ethiopian Jews are Israelites. Yes, I would agree with that. Some of them are. Some of them are Hamites, surprisingly. Around 50% of them are E. The rest are haplogroups A or B. No, I do not have any information on the Isan of Benin. I have a few pseudo sources that sources that you find that you don't take as don't take as factual, or you don't even really post. But I do have some pseudo sources saying that the Isan may be related to Esau Edom. But again, I never dug into it because it didn't have any sources or any quotations or any much information I can follow up on. So again, I really don't have any information on the Isan people. The brother says in the Talmud, it says 10 tribes went into Africa, written over 25,000 years ago, or 2,500 years ago. And yes, indeed it did. And it was telling you that they was dwelling beyond the Sambatyon River. And we broke down where the Sambatyon River was. Shout out to Eldad the Danite for letting us know. And we located those Jews in West Africa that they was talking about in the Talmud. Even the Igbos are known as the Sambatyon Jews. So Shout out to Eldad for, letting us know what a Somebody Young was. The bro says, actually, it does, bro, which is the Latino and Native. Some are dark skinned and some are light skinned. All right. Yeah, I know some Latinos and Natives are dark skinned and some are light skinned, but what is your point? May you expound? Again, the Beja Afar. Yeah, I have to look into them. I don't know about none of those tribes for real. Fulani Admixture, you will find some Israelites among them, but the majority are not Israelites. You will find that some do have Eurasian haplogroup R. And yes, that's facts. That's facts. So some African Americans with haplogroup R actually could be from these Fulani people rather than slave masters, as a lot of people say. Ammonites from Shem's line, the flood happened, and they went from America or Canada. Yeah, all right, brother. We don't believe in America is the old world on this channel. You can go over to the brother. What's his name? Kamaria, whatever his name is. But we don't do that over here, brother. We believe that the ancient Near East is the cradle of civilization, not the Americas. What haplogroups are the Dinka people of the Sudan? Let me look right quick because I actually have some info. Not gonna pull it up, but I'm gonna just read it off real quick. I brought this out in a study. We are not sons of Ham. I showed this Dinka Y DNA haplogroups. Let's see. So the Dinka are from haplogroup A and 60%. And that's what I'm saying. Ancient Babylon is not in America nor Canada. This brother is he wilding. He says Shinar's in Egypt. I mean in Europe. Yeah, brother, we don't believe that here, man. I'm sorry. We can't rock with that. I also heard that and also some people from Nigeria have mentioned they love red and have some Ishan dish soup they like to cook, which is red in color. And yes. Also, I've heard the Edo, the Ishan are supposedly descendants of Edomites. But again, I need to find some good, solid information before I try to present that. Again, you have any questions? Please drop them in the chat before we get ready to wrap up. I'm catching up with the chat now. He says, because someone said only Afro Latinos, native only Israelites, when it's basically saying they come in all shades. I mean, if you want to be 100, all the Native Americans were black. They were black with straight hair and mongoloid features. But just because you black don't mean you're related to somebody. DNA don't give a damn. Excuse me. DNA doesn't care about phenotype. You know what I'm saying? Native Americans and Latinos, they don't have the same DNA as West Africans or Bantus. All right. And this is how we know they aren't Israelites. And we've even showed you the origins of Native Americans and Latinos. Majority of Latinos descend from Western Europeans who came over during colonialism. Majority of Native Americans descend from ancient East Asians, and they even have language affinities and cultural affinities with these people. So it's really laughable to say when people try to say that these people are Israelites, especially when we look at these people cultures such as the Olmecs, Mayans. A lot of these civilizations were established way before the Israelites came into existence. You know what I'm saying? And these people are haplogroup Q also, but that's not an Israelite marker or a Semitic marker. But yes, Dinka are indeed Hamites. yeah, man, if anybody got any information, any good information on the Isan/Edo connection with Edom, that'll be great. But as far as I know, they are E1B1A. So again, it's possible for Esau. I believe it's possible for Esau to have descendants that are E1B1A and even E1B1B, because I believe Esau was EP2. EP2 can give birth to E1B1B and E1B1A. So if the Edo are descendants of Edomites, that'll be a nail or a hard hitter when we're looking at that Y DNA chromosome, because again, they are E1B1A and they are actually related to the Igbo. So, bro, are you being funny or are you being serious? So he says true, but they Israelites though they were conquered by the Spaniards though. Yeah, their male population were killed off, and the Spanish males or the Spaniard males reproduced with the native women, making Spaniard males offspring. So um that wouldn't make them Israelites. That would make them descendants of those Spaniard males, which is why we see Latinos with haplogroup R and all these other European haplogroups, because they descend from the European males. If Israelites came to the Americas, we would see a large E1B1A population. Or if Semitic people came to the Americas, period, we would see that. We would see the marker. Brother said, "What's my email?" I can drop it real quick for you. All right, I just dropped it for you. He says, "What about the Wolof? Are they Hamites or Semitic?" I don't know much about their genetics, so I can't tell. But I do have source material showing that they do have Israelite claims and so-called traditions. So I can only verify that if I was to look at their genetics. That's how I verify a lot of things. Now, before I got into genetics, we were just looking at, tradition, culture, or traditions and stuff like that. But once I got the genetics down pack, that just confirms everything, because everybody we was looking into got the same genetics, with the same traditions and cultures, customs, and things like that. The brother says, so could E1A mutate into E1B1A? I'm honestly not sure. Let me look. Let me see if I can find it real quick. A tree. Yes. Yes, it does. It does. Let me see if I can just show you real quick. Just show my screen. So yes, E1A does, or E1A does eventually mutate into E1B1A. So we start at the top of the E branch or the E branch family. We go to E1, we go over to the E1A mutation, and we see the E1 specific haplogroup mutations right here: E1A1, E1A2, M44, and P110. We see that goes into E1B, which will eventually lead down to E1B1, and then E1B1A, and then the brother branch E1B1B. So yes, to answer your question. The brother says, "May I provide links for the study? I am a Black American trying to find truth also. There's just a lot of Masonic texts. Oh, Masonic texts I've read that prove what I'm saying, and even studies of ancient Spain, Gaul/Iberia. Yes, you're sure you're well welcome to provide the sources for the links for your studies. But again, um We've already broken down. We've already dealt with the lost tribes theory on this channel. So you could send it, but it's not going to change my viewpoint that the Native Americans are descendants of Japhet, the ancient ones and the modern ones. He said the Esan is in my DNA, bro, through Jed match. Probably just a little admixture or something. If you want to know what direct African tribe you descend from, like if you want to know if you're Esan or if you're Yoruba or Igbo, you need to get the African what is it? The African family. Yes, the African ancestry test. That's what it's called. The African ancestry test. And it will give you your direct ancestry to the West African tribes that you were taken from. I know brothers that go back to your Igbos, to your Ibibios, to your Baluba, to your Mendi, to your Fulani. It's a lot of brothers that go back to these tribes, that we connect them through the Israelites. Brother says, I love y'all. Levites, same as the Limba. Says, I hear some say the Maasai are Israelites, which I disagree. I was just looking at that the other day, and they do have E markers. So it's very possible that some of them are Israelites. Matter of fact, let me look at that right now, because just looking at that the other day. Actually, see if I can share my screen once I find what I'm looking for. Excuse me, family. All right, so give me 1 second and I get this pulled up so we can look at the white DNA. And this is just coming from a quick source from Wikipedia, but it has genetic study tied to it. But right here it says, I'm going to show you this dealing with the Maasai real quick. Maasai people. Again, I've heard people try to connect the Maasai people with the tribe of Manasseh. But again, I haven't done any research into these people besides looking at their haplogroup to say they Israelites or not. It says a Y chromosome study by Woodell, 2005, tested various sub-Saharan populations, including 26 Maasai. The authors observed haplogroup E1B1B, which specific branch was EM35, which represented 35 of the Maasai. They also found E1B1B M78, 15% in the Maasai. And they also found it, or the second most frequent haplogroup in them was haplogroup A3B2. So they also have haplogroup A in them, which is observed at around 27%, they say. Now, the third most marker that they found in them is E1B1A at 12%. So they have 12% E1B1A, around 40%, or I guess you could say 50% E1B1B, and the rest is A. So you can say that they're Ham and Shem, basically, but majority Shem. The brother said the giants in Western Europe and America, Japhet shall dwell in the tents of Shem. All right, you'll have to prove that Semitic people lived in America first, though. And yeah, you can say that small percent of people in the Maasai that had haplogroup A are Cushites, but majority of them would be descendants of Shem. Canaan or Baal being Baal worshippers, sacrifice people, the Berbers in North Africa that were kicked out by. Okay, so what people have to understand is this name Canaan doesn't just mean a descendant of Canaan. The name Canaan does not just mean a descendant of Canaan. Again, the name Canaan does not just mean the descendant of Canaan. And there's literature, that's academia sources that refer to Semitic people as Canaanites. The Israelites have been called Canaanites. The Ishmaelites have been called Canaanites. Lots of Semitic people have been called Canaanites. If you go to the Strong's Concordance, look up what Kanani means or Canaan means. It tells you a descendant of Canaan, an inhabitant of Canaan, or a merchant. This is why we looked at the Canaanite burials. We see that the genetics actually went back to Europeans, went back to Hurrians, because Canaanite is a broad term, like America or American. You have white Americans, you have black Americans, you have Mexican Americans. It's a broad term. So, what tribe are the Gauls of Senegal today? Sephardim who left Spain. And yes, that's possible. That's possible. That's possible. And it's also possible that they are descendants of the Mandi people, because the Gauls or the Bards were actually I guess you can say musicians amongst the Mandi people. That's what they call like musicians or poets. And again, you can go look at my Mandi Israelite history video part 2 for that information. It says, have you done history on the Bamileke, Bamoon, Bassa? I've done let's see, I've done information on the Bassa, brought information out on the Bassa, not the rest. I do know about the Bamileke. I do have sources on the Bamileke or information on the Bamileke, and I do know that they are 100% E1B1A. Now, there's two claims that it goes on amongst the Bamileke, and that's that they are Judah, and another one is that they are Ephraim. But again, I have to verify and just continue to dig until I have enough, information to bring out a presentation. But I do not know about the Mamoon tribe or the Daula or the Tikar of Cameroon. I just have to look into them sometime in the future. Ancient Americans are black and brown and share a lot of similarities with West Africans. I mean, you can say they were black and brown. Again, I will admit that they were black and brown, but they don't have any similarities with West Africans that I know of. Again, you can provide the links to your sources, but you have to realize everybody on earth was black and brown. Japheth's seeds or sons were black and brown peoples. This is why a lot of travelers said that the Native Americans were black as Ethiopians, because they were black with straight hair and Mongolian features and European, or rather, let's see what you can say, East Asian Y chromosome haplotypes. African ancestry says I'm a Yoruba, but 23andMe update says I'm related to the Igbo. And again, that could be very well possible. Like I say, you could be a descendant of one who just didn't mutate. That was amongst the Israelite population. You know what I'm saying? You could have an old basal haplogroup just because your ancestors didn't mutate. Maasai are a Hamitic group of people who some mix with Bantus. So yes, some do have Israelite blood, but the majority are Hamitic. Again, the majority are not Hamitic. We just looked at it. 35% was EM35. Another 15% was EM74. Another 12% was E1B1A or EM2. So these people are around 60-70% haplogroup E, and the rest of them, which was 27%, was haplogroup A. So the majority of them are Semitic. Through my paternal, I'm Akan. Shalom, shalom. And again, I didn't say they was Israelites, but they aren't Hamites. Again, 70% of these people have Semitic DNA. So that whole overall population wouldn't be Hamites. There would be more Semitic. The brother says, how do we get this info to Afriki? We just got to connect. We just have to keep connecting with our West African brothers, man. West African brothers and sisters to just close the gaps. Thankfully, I've been able to connect with a lot of brothers and sisters, back in West Africa, a few elders, a few Igbo brothers, a few Bantu brothers. So again, we just got to connect with our brothers and sisters. A lot of the times they on social media. It's a lot of brothers and sisters on Instagram, on Facebook. You guys have to realize that the Israelite community is massive. All right, the Israelite community is massive. Like I say, I'm in communication with people every day. Israelites from the UK, from the Caribbean, Jamaica, West Africa. You know what I'm saying? We in group chats. You know what I'm saying? We have video calls together. So we just got to keep connecting with our brothers and sisters and pass this information on and just study together. And that's how to get to Africa. And even from the African standpoint, the history is coming out. A lot of the West African chiefs and leaders, they're coming out and reclaiming their identity. So it's just as far as the history and everything that has to be retaught within Africa and even in the Americas. The North Americans are sons of Shem, and yes, they were Lamanites. Oh man, you're talking about the Book of Mormon. I'm like, what is a Lamanite? Yeah, brother, I don't do the Book of Mormon. We don't do Joseph Smith. We don't do America. It's the old new world. Whatever you're talking about, brother. Again, if the North Americans were sons of Shem, we would see them with haplogroups E or D. All right, haplogroups E or D. We look at the sons of Shem today; they are predominantly haplogroup E. The Arabs, the Berbers, the sons of Joktan, the Israelites. We can keep going. These people are haplogroup E. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, brother. Wrong channel. Y'all willing, I will sometime in the near future. Y'all willing? I will do, because again, that's very, very telling that they are 100% E1B1A. I think the only people that's close to them are the Yoruba. All right, are the Yoruba. But give me 1 second, family. Play a video, and I'll be right back.
Nigeria was always a united country, united by culture and several predispositions in geography and history. To be honest, when we go from as far back as we can think about it, all the migrations through Africa from the Middle East down to West Africa and right down to Southern Africa and up again to Zimbabwe and into Nigeria. And that's how Nigeria was formed.
All right, family, my bad. I'm back, but I'm about to catch up on these comments, and then we're going to wrap it up. And yes, exactly that's what I'm saying. Leave that Mormonism alone, bro. That's not our book. That's not our history. And there's even memes going around of them posting pictures of a black guy saying that that's Joseph Smith. But when you image search, or when you Google search the picture that they're posting, it's not Joseph Smith. But and you would not know who's a Kohen based on DNA, just because all the Israelites would have the same DNA. You know what I'm saying? All the Israelites would have the same DNA. So we saying the Israelites are E1B1A, we would expect the Kohens to be E1B1A. In my last video I posted, we showed you Kohens with E1B1A. We showed you Zadok priests with E1B1A. So yeah, we should expect to see that. Okay, brother, I feel you, but I ain't trying to be mean to you, brother. But yeah, man, we don't deal with Mormonism over here. We don't deal with a lot of that stuff you're speaking about, because it's no validity to it. It's no truth. over here we like to prove everything that we're speaking on. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of that stuff dealing with America is really pseudo. Just being honest with your brother. Right, like you said, there is no Kohen DNA. It would be the same as the rest of Israel. All right, because Aaron would descend from Jacob, just like the rest of the Israelites. We would expect the Israelites to possess Jacob's DNA or haplotype. Can you do something on the Chaga, Sukuma, and Ingwazi people in Tanzania? Indeed, I will. Once I get time to, gather some information and studies and bring something together. And yes, for many centuries they've known and kept the traditions and things of that sort. So they've always known that they were Israelites. Well, I guess you can say some didn't just claim to be Israelites, but they did have the tradition and the customs and things like that, because not everybody's just out here saying that they're Israelites. People can forget, but still keep the traditions and cultures and the names and things like that. All right, all right. It says, question, what are the black coat of arms all over Europe? And I'm going to give you two answers to this, but again, I haven't confirmed it, so you might have to confirm it yourself. But some people like to say that they're about Moorish or the black inhabitants, the black rulers and stuff like that within the different localities of Europe. So they would be references to black nobility. So that's what those coat of arms would be. But from another standpoint, I've also seen information saying that these coat of arms actually represent the people that were killed by the Europeans, and they're putting it on the coat of arms to, I guess you can say, brag or commemorate their defeat of these Moorish peoples. So again, I haven't confirmed that myself, but those are two questions you can those are two answers you can do follow-up research on. And yeah, exactly. The 12 tribes chart or camp, watching camp videos on YouTube is what woke me up, man. Watching camp videos on YouTube is what woke me up until I started, doing research on my own. And you can't question camp brothers. So, but yeah, man, you just gotta research on your own and verify everything. Also, where did the Spanish and Portuguese Ladinos of Sephardim come from? The Spanish and Portuguese Sephardim came from Israel after being exiled to Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar sent some of them over to Spain and Portugal, I believe first to Granada and then to Seville. We've literally done many videos. I've done a whole video showing you how these Israelites, through the scripture, through sources, showing you how these people left the Levant, went into captivity to Babylon, how Nebuchadnezzar sent them to Spain, so forth, so on. And you also had other migrations in 70 AD and also other migrations from the Jews that settled in North Africa after those revolts. So the Sephardim or the Sephardic Jews would be regular Israelites that came from the Levant. Thank you for tuning in, and may the Father bless you and your family as well. Indeed. Brother says, last question, what do you know about the Lebu of Senegambia? Honestly, this is my first time hearing them. So that's another tribe I have to look into. Again, family, it's a lot of tribes that we don't know of and that we still have to look into. So I thank everybody for dropping these names, you know what I'm saying? Because don't think I'm just looking at them. I'm writing them down. So I can look into them later on and hopefully find some connections. The brother says, "Yeah, from African Americans to Israelites, that's your book." It might be something like that. It might be something like that, but it's going to be very deep. It's going to be very deep. It's going to be connecting the African diaspora and showing how they descend from Israelites, indeed. And yes, I've seen the picture of the Moors versus the Wildmen. I've seen the pictures of the Moors fighting the Wildmen. That doesn't mean every single European ethnic group looked like that, but some did, and maybe that those people did. But yes, I'm very much aware of the Moors and Wildman fighting scene and depictions. And the brother goes on to say they are a fishing tribe. Okay, so maybe you're talking in reference of the Lebu. So again, thank you for that. That's something else I can add on to it. It says most South African Bantus have Khoisan DNA because of intermarriages with them as they migrated south into Africa, because most of them have 50 to 60% E1B1A. You can see the Khoisan phenotype. And yes, I would agree with that statement. Because the history matches it, the migration route matches it, and the DNA matches it. Again, this is why only some Bantu tribes in Southern Africa and things like that only have around 50 to 60%, when West Africans are around 70 to 100, right? Because they mix more and it was more traffic during their migrations. So with that, family, give you a few more seconds, drop your last questions if you don't have any. I'm gonna say Shabbat Shalom to you all, and y'all willing, we'll be back sometime soon. I may try to get some information tomorrow to bring out some Black history regarding modern Jews or modern day Jews of color or present day Jews of color, and just bringing out Black history for the so-called Black History Month. It says you can see the Khoisan phenotype among the Zulu, Xhosa, and those other tribes. I don't really see it amongst the Zulu, but I can see it among some of the Xhosa. So yes, you can see that phenotype from those Khoisan men and women amongst some of those Southern Africa Bantu tribes. But with that, family, I say peace, I say blessings, and I say enjoy your Shabbat that's coming up. May you rest well, and may Yah continue to be with you all. And again, I will see you all sometime soon. Peace.